dreadlocks, dreads.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they not okay? From the set of events, a lot of people are asking Korean people to become educated. Do you think that's fair? Because personally, this is Danny Kim. Welcome to the very first episode of Soju Time with Danny. This is a pilot episode, and we'll be drinking soju with various people from various different backgrounds and try to understand each other and see where the discussion goes. So today, for the first guest, we have...
What's up, everybody? My name is Mike, or Mikole, and I'm a YouTuber here in South Korea, and I'm excited.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you been living in Korea, and what brings you here?
All right, so far I've been living in Korea now for about going on 6 years in July, and I originally came to be an international school teacher here, and I came back in 2014 and loved it so much here that I just never left.
And you're married to a Korean wife?
I'm married to a Korean wife now.
Nice. I have no Korean wife. I have no wife.
It's coming.
Maybe. We have different kinds of soju here. I don't know what you like. So tell me which one you want.
I can already see what I want. I want the jamong soju.
Okay, that's a weak choice. So tell me about this jamong soju.
Well, it kind of has a like a fruity taste. But the thing about soju is that, you know, if you keep drinking it, even if it's flavored, you're still going to have the same kick later.
Right. You're still going to get drunk.
You're still going to get it. So
either way, it's good soju. And for some anju, I was very generous, feeling generous. So I got some salmon, hue, raw fish. So we're going to have some hue and soju, and we're going to talk about Black Lives Matter.
All right.
Just getting to the heavy shit right away. Okay. You like raw fish?
I do. I love raw fish.
Okay, awesome. This is like the perfect anju for soju, right? I would say like this is my favorite anju. Oh, damn, look at that. That
looks
fresh. Good. Yeah, that is fresh.
That coloration is just...
Yes. Let's talk about Black Lives Matter.
Okay, we're just getting into the heavy stuff.
Yes, over a bottle of soju. Okay, you first.
Okay,
You're
thank you.
Older than me.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that.
It's okay. We're in Korea. Guess my age.
27.
Oh, nice guess. 28.
Oh.
Usually people guess like 30-something.
Really?
So I'm very happy. I'm very pleased. Okay, here, take a shot. Jan.
It's good.
Get a brief intro to what the entire series of events was.
Just going within let's say the last month or two. The big thing that really got all the protests kicked off was the death of George Floyd.
Yes.
If you remember, I think it was last month, he was killed by an officer who kneeled on his neck for 8 minutes and 40-some seconds.
Right. Very long time.
Very long time. He wasn't resisting arrest or anything. And even bystanders were there. They were yelling at the cop, like, please, get off him. He's not resisting. But he just continued. And, I mean, it's really sad when you actually look at the picture, just kneeling on him. And he ended up dying. That just set off just a firestorm of protest, anger. It wasn't just in the U.S., but just around the world, right?
Right. And you have family in America? Where are you originally from?
So I'm originally from Georgia. North Carolina. So things got really bad in those states too. Because in the U.S. we're in the Deep South, right? And so the Deep South has a big history of racism and discrimination, and so there was a lot of protests, a lot of fighting.
Yeah, my brother lives in Georgia, actually.
Atlanta.
How did you know?
Oh.
That's where all the Koreans live?
Maybe.
Okay. Yeah. how did you feel when you saw the protest and, you know, the video?
When I originally saw the video, I had a feeling of, it's really weird. Like I was angry, but it's the type of anger that you know that you're not going to be angry that one time. You know you're going to get angry again because these things have happened so many times. I mean, even I think a month before that, or maybe not a month, maybe a few weeks, Ahmaud Arbery was killed, but he was jogging. I don't know if you ever seen that video. He was jogging
I saw
on the back streets, and then he got into a scuffle with two white men, and one shot him. And it's like, these things have happened for so many... Let me eat this fish. I'm holding it, and it's just like dripping on my hand. These things have happened for so many years, right? And so I just felt so much anger. I can't understand why this man died for doing nothing. I mean, he was apparently using counterfeit money, but to die as a result.
And it's a $20 bill. It's not like he was carrying like millions of dollars in counterfeit. I mean, even then, like that's not the right way to punish somebody, right? Like you don't execute somebody on the spot. So I think anybody seeing that video, whether or not you're black, would feel, you know, that's not right. Like, something's not right. What's happening there? And I think like a lot of Koreans felt the same way too. Like when they saw that video.
Thank you.
I'll just pour my own. When they saw that video, I think a lot of Korean people. Have you talked about this with Korean people, like with your friends?
I have.
Your students.
I have actually, yeah. I would say with all of them. Friends from, especially living in Korea, you have friends from all over, right? And so I feel that a lot of my friends that are Black Americans, man, we've been having conversations after conversations, because just to kind of wrap our heads around it, because now we haven't really seen protests like this. I don't know, in a long time, if really ever in our lifetime. Like this is going all the way around the world, right? And but I've also taught with people who are not Black Americans, right? So with Koreans, but then also with our non-Black American friends, right? So I'll say even our white American friends, right? And believe it or not, even living international, you have some people who you would think they'd be more open-minded, but they're not, right? And I guess that's just this homegrown mindset that some people have in the U.S.
American people. What do they say? Like,
okay, so you know, there's Black Lives Matter, right? That's
lives matter.
And then there's the other side aisle, which is all lives matter. And I feel like there's just this miseducation as to what is Black Lives Matter, and a lot of people believe like what Black Lives Matter is like it's a movement. It's a movement that spawned from from police brutality going back to like 2013, right, with the death of Trayvon Martin, right? And then Zimmerman was acquitted, the guy who killed him. And so then that's when it really started to kick off, and that's when it was born. So it's really just a movement to make people aware and then fight against the systemic killing of Black and brown people by the police. That's the core of the movement. But
what does saying all lives matter do?
So all lives matter, I mean, even all lives matter in itself was created as a way to kind of
counter
Black Lives Matter to weaken the strength of Black Lives Matter, because then you know other people are like, well, you know, I think everybody's equal and everybody deserves to live.
Well, so no shit.
Yeah, right. I remember it was around 2013, 2014, and I cannot remember who said it. A white American politician who mentioned that all lives matter, and I think from there it just kind of just spiraled. People used it to counteract Black Lives Matter, and that goes back to even the friends that I have. You know, some of them feel that, you know, I love everybody and I think everybody's equal and everybody deserves to live, and so all lives matter. And then myself and my friends, we had to like, you know, to educate them. It's like, yeah, we agree. We do agree. We completely agree with you. All lives do matter.
Right.
But all lives cannot matter unless Black lives also matter as well.
And you're not putting like Black lives in the front, I guess.
Exactly.
It's like everybody's equal. We're just trying to say that consider us, for once. I think a good analogy that I give to my Korean friends, because a lot of Korean people, they say all lives matter, right? They think this is like some black supremacist movement.
Yeah.
Right. So what I say to a lot of my Korean friends is, if you say all lives matter now, it's like saying, we have this thing called 3.1 운동. It's basically like an independence movement that happened in 1919 against Japan. And like you have this entire movement going on trying to get independence from the Japanese colonial rule. And then like some American guy comes in and says, you know what? You guys matter too, but everybody's country matters. Everybody deserves independence. It's like, no shit. Like, we're not talking about that. So I use that analogy to kind of let them understand. But honestly, even though like I think I'm more, I mean, I'm way more open to, I guess, American values and American media than the typical Korean guy. Though I am, more open to that. I still have some confusion regarding Black Lives Matter. So I see actually on Twitter and, on our comments even, a lot of people say that, Korean people, or especially K-pop artists, they should say something about Black Lives Matter because a lot of K-pop is heavily influenced by hip-hop and R&B.
Yeah.
I kind of get where they're coming from, but at the same time, from a Korean mindset, like when other people enjoy parts of our culture, we really celebrate it. Like we have TV shows of foreigners trying out our shit. We love it when non-Korean people come to our country and try our hanbok. And they always say like, in the comments, oh, wouldn't you be offended if people were wearing hanbok without knowing, its roots and stuff like that? And honestly, as a Korean person, I'm like, go ahead. Like, I love it. Like, it doesn't matter. So for me, that part is a little bit hard to understand. So could you kind of explain the sentiment behind that?
I remember thinking a lot about this before. And especially being here in Korea for now a few years, I just feel that with Korean culture, like for the Korean culture, I love Korean culture.
Right.
It's very beautiful, and there's a lot to celebrate about it. And I think probably what contrasts with a lot of Black American culture. So if we just look specifically at Black American culture, right? Because there's Black fill in the blank culture. There's a lot of it, right?
Right.
We have a long history of just our culture either being stolen. Or our culture being used, or us like doing our thing, right? And that's celebrated, but never the person. Let's say go back in the U.S., let's say 50s, 60s, 30s, 20s.
Elvis.
Oh, God. Oh, don't get me started on Elvis. God.
We have a lot of young viewers. So Elvis Presley, he took basically black music, and then he was a white dude. He got popular from basically re-recording black music. Yeah.
And then he could get away with it, right?
Right.
I mean, there were not too many people who would say anything about it. I mean, you had other black artists who were around the same time who were, I think, just as good, if not better. So then there's like Chuck Berry. He's like the godfather of rock and roll. Like he was like, Chuck Berry was amazing, right? You had Little Richard, things like that, where culture was stolen and people didn't pay homage to it.
Right.
You also have artists that used to like perform in these clubs and everything, but then black people couldn't be patrons in the same club.
So you were good enough. Black people could perform, but they couldn't attend.
I mean, and that's just a big part of the U.S.
It's kind of shocking that was like 60 years ago, 70 years ago.
Just a general ballpark, the 60s. The general ballpark, the 60s, right? So that's when all the movements,
it's kind of hard to believe, man.
Right?
It's like, wow.
Tell me about it. And
even after Korea went through the war, you guys were still
still fighting. And it's like
it's fucked up.
And I know we do have some young people out there, but I had a friend who mentioned the other day who was like, but our parents were actually living through that. And we were like, dang, because like my mom, she was born 1950. Like she was a teenager when Dr. King came on the scene, and then they did the marches in Alabama.
That's a real thing for her. Like,
it's a real thing.
It's not a history book thing.
Dude, somewhere, this is in North Carolina, right? This is in North Carolina City. And she made eye contact with an older white man. And she wasn't supposed to. You weren't supposed to.
What?
Yeah. Like as a black.
Is that like a f***ing law?
It was like
courtesy.
It was like an unknown law, right? You just don't look up.
What?
And
oh my god!
She looked him in the eye and she walked right by him, and then the guy like smacked her in the head.
Huh.
So she's like a little girl. She's probably like 5 or 6.
Damn.
And her mom just said, "Come on, it's okay, let's go." And my grandmother just like took her and just ran with her. Couldn't say anything. Couldn't call the police. So yeah. So
now I get why you guys are pissed.
Yeah. So, I mean, right. So it's a whole history.
Yeah. It's very recent events.
Those wounds are still open too. They're still fresh.
Going back to Elvis.
Okay, going back to Elvis.
How do you guys feel about Elvis? Well, I guess it's hard to generalize you guys, but like, do you not like him?
Elvis has some good songs. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Elvis does have. I mean, because I like Blue Christmas. I mean, it's a nice song. I think some people think of Elvis the way I see Michael Jackson. So it's like some people would be excited about Elvis. Right. For me, it's like I'm like, it's like okay, but then like I love Michael Jackson, right? And so who I think was also just better than Elvis. Well, some people don't like him, and some people have no love for him. But I don't know if there's too many black people who like I love Elvis. Elvis the best.
It's like this is the shit right here.
Like for Halloween they dress up as Elvis. Like,
let's talk about dressing up. Okay, since you mentioned that. This is also an interesting thing that's going on that honestly like I still don't fully understand, and most Koreans would never understand. Dreadlocks, dreads. Why are they not okay? Going back to the hanbok analogy, whether or not you acknowledge or even think about our culture, the fact that you thought this was beautiful, like hanbok was beautiful, is more than enough for us to say you appreciate some part of our culture. So I would say like, in some sense, people in Korea, a lot of hip hop artists, they have dreads and they get a lot of shit for that, especially from Black Americans, for cultural appropriation. But from what a lot of Korean people think, and also part of me also thinks this, like I think they would be more appreciative on the more appreciative side of Black culture than the regular Korean, because they actually took the effort to put on a Black hairstyle. So please tell me what.
It's something I'm still trying to figure out myself.
Okay, so you don't know either.
I mean, it's I can take guesses.
So you don't feel offended when like a Korean person?
I don't feel. I won't say that I don't feel offended. That I don't feel offended. I would say here's what it is.
You don't care.
It's. I'm closer to not caring, but I have more respect for those who understand the hair and respect the people and try to learn more about the people who don that hair naturally. So
how do we do that?
I think honestly,
do we just not do the hair? It's like, I mean, I'm not asking you to set the rules for people, but I'm just asking.
It's a good question. It's a legit question. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I would definitely this is just my personal opinion. Like I'm okay with the hair.
Okay.
Like if people are going to wear dreadlocks, then I can imagine they probably have some interest in the culture. Right. They're not just doing it they went out of their way. This is not like a natural thing to come across in Korea. No. In the process of doing that, I think for them to either research or make friends that are Black, I think that adds on to those steps that they take. And really trying to understand, because then there's also some people who they do these things and those things are based on stereotypes or things that they think the culture is about or things they think people would do within that culture. So like, for example, you put on dreadlocks and then you suddenly like act gangsta. Yeah, like that. Yeah. No, that's a no-no. Yeah, exactly. Or like, I'll give you an example. So thoughts that I've had watching, what's that TV show? Show Me the Money, right? Yeah. So watching. That's just like. So watching that, right, and then like, and the way that some of those guys act gangster, and I think And I shared some of the same thoughts that my black counterparts who watched the show was that these guys, a lot of them grew up in Korea.
Yeah, they have no idea.
They have no idea. They've probably gone to Hagwons.
Right.
They're probably very educated.
Very far from the streets.
Very far from the streets, right?
The hood does not exist here.
And then they act like that. And it's like, wait a minute. Like, even I watched one time, this guy was wearing a do-rag. I wear a do-rag when I want waves or when I want to keep, oil in my hair. Yeah. So I don't get it on my pillow.
So is that a functional thing?
So it's a functional thing, right? It's just what people wear at night to keep their hair tight, needy for the next day, right?
I have no idea.
So that's what it's for, right? That's what it's for. But then, just looking, you would think, oh, this is just what they wear to be a part of, to be hip hop, to be gangsta, right?
Yeah.
To be gangsta.
So they don't understand why, and they just go for the aesthetic. I guess that's that's why it's a problem.
And then I think that's what make a lot of people upset, and I think that's what the appropriation is.
Interesting.
And then the only other thing I've heard as well is people get mostly upset when they don something from a culture, and then they make either money or profit off of it. One big example, and it's kind of out there, but it surprised me that this was actually an example, was Fortnite. Because I know the video game, which killed me, and the reason why is because Fortnite, you could do emotes and dance and everything. So what they did was they started taking some popular dances. From black artists, and then they didn't pay homage. They didn't say the artist's name. They just rebranded and then they charged money for it, and then people paid money for it, and so they made money off other people's dances. Then there's the argument that but can you really copyright a dance? But then if someone has a music video, they make up a dance and people are doing that dance.
Interesting.
And then now people are paying you for someone else's dance that they created.
I don't know if that's necessarily like a racial issue more than a copyright issue, but I get what you're
saying. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but the artist went on TV for a while. He was upset about that, and he said he was just really upset at the fact that his dance is taken. I mean, there's a few other dances on there also by black folk.
But I understand what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah. If you go on Naver or down the major Korean websites where people voice their opinions, I see a lot of people saying negative stuff about Black Lives Matter, especially focusing on the looting and the violent protesters, if you want to call them protesters. Do you feel other Korean people talking to you about that issue, or do Korean people actually voice their opinions or distaste Black Lives Matter to you?
Actually, I will say I have not met anybody that's shown distaste or has said anything negative about it. At least they haven't said it to my face.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
But
I've seen where people were just generally concerned.
About what?
Just things that are happening in the U.S. Korean friends were asking me if I was okay. Korean people were asking me please tell me more. I want to know. I want to know what is happening, because they don't really get chance to know about these racial issues, and I know the news in Korea, they're showing the riots. A lot of protesting, and I also know that there's still some wounds there with Korea, with the LA riots and everything. So it's almost like just a nasty flashback to that. But then now I also have met friends who are like, "What is it really like being black in America? What is it like being discriminated against?" And so, which I was really surprised that I'm now having Korean friends who really want to know, what is it? I want to know.
Because I have no idea. Because I never lived in America. I lived in Canada, but half of Canada is Chinese people, and the quarter of Canada is Korean people. So I've never faced any sort of discrimination based on my race. Living there. Or really anywhere, so maybe I'm not sensitive enough. Maybe they were racist, but I wasn't sensitive enough. But I've never faced any of that. So tell me what it's like. Do you feel some sort of danger or something inside of you?
Yeah, it's the weirdest feeling. Like, I think living in Korea, I've not become numb to it, but that feeling has kind of become more foreign to me. Like, I just don't recognize it as quick as I could if I was in the U.S. But I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Being in the U.S., especially in the South, again, it has a history of just racial discrimination and everything. My mom would always tell me, if I'm on the road, like, Mikole, don't be out too long. Don't go too many places by yourself. I mean, it's just, part about just being safe. Right. But then also she was like, be careful when you stop your car and you go into certain places. Right. Right. And so even when stopping to get gas, like, I'll get stares from people. And I know these towns that I'm stopping in, and I kind of understand, like, what the population's like and what the people are like.
So they're, like, not used to seeing a black dude in their city or town.
They're either not used to seeing it, or they are used to seeing it, but their views of black people might not be as great as I would want them to be, right? And then, like, or you'll see, like, a big truck with a Confederate flag on it, with, like, flying and everything. And that doesn't automatically mean that somebody's going to be racist. Right. But that chance is pretty...
You just want to be careful.
You just want to be careful.
Right.
And then, when something does happen, when you are discriminated against, like, when you're actually... discriminated against or somebody says something, it's almost I don't know, it's like an out-of-body experience, especially if you're not used to it.
Have you faced a lot of that? Like, have you dealt with a lot of that?
I have not, in the sense of some of the things that I'm seeing online, which are just pure outright just disgusting racism. Like, I have not, and I thank God for that. But there's always these microaggressions. Right. These things that, like, people say or friends say. I had friends who were not black who made black jokes because...
How do you feel about that?
That feels very uncomfortable. That feels so uncomfortable. Like, especially if it's a friend, right? And then like they say something to you, and you're just like, oh, what?
Did you just say that? It must be kind of weird because, like, you don't want to be, like, awkward and make shit awkward and say, like, hold on, like, that's not cool.
Right.
But at the same time, it's not cool.
Right, exactly. And I feel in retrospect, I should have said something. Yeah. But at that time, you were just so thrown off by what they said. You're like, do I respond to this? Like, do I let this go? Do I catch them later and be like, hey, by the way, what you said? Like, it's...
Yeah. Especially among dudes. You know what I mean? Because, like, we like to say some outrageous shit.
Yeah.
Some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
So, like, I think, especially among guys, it's very difficult to point each other out and, like, call each other out when we say something that's, I guess, out of the line. Because that's what a lot of guys like. Like, they like one-upping each other and making more ridiculous and just offensive shit. Yeah. So I definitely understand you. I mean, like, we don't have the racial jokes here, but we definitely have a lot of other types of jokes that are just as bad. Yeah. So, yeah, I understand you.
So my high school was like a fine arts school, right? So it was pretty mixed, but at the time I hung with a lot of, like, Korean American friends there. And then we were hanging out with a lot of with white friends. And my Korean American buddy, I don't know why he said this, but I think he called someone, like, his chigga. And then he decided to break it down from there. He's like, my Chinese, and he said it.
Like, he did a play-by-play.
He said my Chinese. And then I was like, and of course I was the only black guy there. He was the only Korean guy there, and then everybody else was white. And so at that moment, that, like, even this was, I don't know, 2004. Like, I was like a junior in high school, and it was like, even then, I don't know, I felt like I was shrinking. Like, I wanted to say something, but then nobody else there felt the need to say something. Like, they all thought it was funny, but I was the only black one.
Right. And you don't want to be, like, hit all up in arms, the only guy. Like, that's very difficult. It takes a lot of courage to do that.
Yeah.
It's not that you don't want to be that guy, but, like, it's very difficult to be that guy.
I felt so out of place. I felt so uncomfortable, and I felt like I don't know, like, I feel like the more of my being was, like, attacked there. And then the fact that it was attacked by one of my best friends.
Right.
They're trying to, like, please these other people.
Huh.
You know, it's something that still sticks with me.
Actually, come to think of it, Korean people make a lot of race jokes. Because I remember when I first came over from Vancouver. I think I was in middle school, and I remember being extremely uncomfortable with the way everybody talked.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand, like, it's like a totally different social climate. Mm-hmm, and first of all, Korea is a very homogenous country. 99% of Korean people living in Korea are Korean.
Yeah.
Right? The Korean ethnicity. So we don't have a lot of diversity here. So it's very difficult to understand, you know, the sensitivity, I guess, that comes with being racially diverse. I grew up in Vancouver. I grew up in a very, very diverse neighborhood. I go to school in Seoul, and literally, like, half the shit they say is about, like, because I came from Canada. They're like, what are white people like? White people must be like this. You know, black people must be like this. What are the we call them First Nations people. First Nations people, like, but they obviously said Indians anyway. But anyway, like it was very ignorant shit, and I became extremely uncomfortable because it's like, we don't talk like that in Canada. But like, looking back, you know, they just didn't know better because they're young, and especially at that time, like, I think now Korea is a little bit more diverse. This generation that's going to school right now than my generation, like 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Yeah. But still, like, it was very off-putting for me. So I became very uncomfortable at that time. And I was like, I hate Korea, which is kind of funny. So it's like, I fucking hate Korea. Like, I want to get out. I love Canada. I thought I was Canadian, but then I went to the military and realized I was Korean. But yeah, I definitely get you. And actually, even now, like, you talk about, like, you know, people making those kind of jokes with you right there. Well, I have a few friends who say the N-word. Yeah. Not like on a regular basis. Yeah. But like every once, I don't know why they say it, but it's like they say it. But since, like, it's not even registered as a really taboo word. I mean, I'm not black, so like, I'm not the one that should be, like, the most offended by this. Right. So, like, do I call this out? Like, I never call it out. But I feel like at the bottom of my heart, I'm like, these people shouldn't be saying this shit. Like, that's not right. But at the same time, it feels it's not easy to say something about it. Yeah. Funny thing. Yesterday, I had this workout YouTuber that's really famous in Korea. He has like 300,000 subscribers. Very famous. Yeah. This dude literally dropped the N-word in a video randomly. I don't remember the context, but he was making a joke. Yeah. And he used black people as an analogy. And he said, just like how black people call each other the N-word, and he literally said the N-word, we gym rats call each other something. Oh, God. And it's like, wow. But that guy does not know better, I guess. So how do we educate this? Like, this is a very difficult topic. Like, because first of all, I think there's a lot of misconceptions here, especially from Americans viewing Korea via the internet. They always say, like, you can always Google, you can always, like, you shouldn't be ignorant about this stuff. Yeah. In some part of my heart, I agree. You know, I get the sentiment, but at the same time, when you really don't know shit, it's very difficult to Google for something you don't even fucking know.
Especially something like that, right? Which is
like, they have no idea. Like, yeah. So how do we educate people about that?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, like, this is a whole nother world from the U.S., right? And, like, even if you were to Google it, it doesn't mean that you have a cultural understanding of it whatsoever, right?
You don't know the heaviness.
No. Yeah. No, so I think that one of the first things to do is, like, for one, let's say if someone is, like, really ignorant or someone just not knowing, right? Not stupid, ignorant, but just, like, they just don't know. Then just tell them. just educate them, right? I think that's one of the first steps that we can do. That's like sensible. It's coming from a friend that may know more, or at least, obviously if we say like, oh, you can always Google, it's always better for a person to just tell them and set the record straight, right? And then I think also for those who are like wanting to help and then not knowing how to help, then just asking as well. Others who are Black, just like, what can I do? What will make whatever situation you're in better? Also, just looking at everything that's just, I guess, in the context of what's happening in Korea, because even I've seen things being Black while living in Korea. I think sometimes it's also good for us to just, if we see it, call it out. You see it, call it out. And I think now, while the iron is hot, we got to strike. Right,
right. Like, people are interested. Whether they like the Black Lives Matter movement or not, people care about this shit, man.
Right. And their ears are opening, right? So if you're honestly going to educate, now is the time to educate. And I feel like there's enough people and organization and whatever out there that could back you up, that could support you. I think more people are speaking up nowadays anyway, because, when you're alone, like in the situation I was in, like there wasn't social media then. Really, at least it wasn't. I mean, it was MySpace, but but there was like nothing really to make me feel like I can do something. Yeah. I love it, sir. Versus now, I think people feel more encouraged to speak out against things. So just more encouragement to just say something when you see it, do something about it.
Interesting. Do your students say some like weird shit because they don't know any better? I'm sure they do. How old are they?
Oh, man. They're 5th grade, 11, 10, 11.
They must, like, because they're like totally naive to everything.
Yeah. Because, so even though I do teach like international kids, of course we're living in Korea, so the population is going to be higher for Korean. And so when some kids thought that I looked like another teacher who was Black, look nothing like that teacher. We don't resemble nothing like him whatsoever. And luckily he was next door. Yeah. And so I just knocked on the door and said, "Can you go over for a second?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." So he came on over. We stood next to each other, and I was like, "So do we still resemble?" And they're like, "You guys have matching skin." It's like, you think? Like, no shit. So it was just really funny though, because then I was like, okay, so what about you and you? You two look alike. We look nothing alike. I was like, all right, Japanese and Korean people, they look alike. No, they don't. They look completely different. So we were like, so then how can you say that we look alike, but then East Asians don't look alike? And that conversation, it was a hilarious conversation.
It was pretty funny.
It was really funny. But in that conversation, it really made a lot of them kind of like rethink things. And one of the kids in the class, his mom is white, his dad is Black. And of course, he's going to be like, no, they look nothing alike. Talking about me and the other teacher. He's like, they look nothing alike. And then when he said that, I said, how do you feel about this? And he's like, I don't feel that good. And I'm like, why? He's like, my dad's Black. And so, now they have a classmate who has a similar feeling. And so now they kind of relating to that classmate or empathizing with that classmate, right? And so we're definitely having these conversations, even with kids.
Interesting. Do they learn? Like, do you think they learn?
I do think. Yeah. I do think they learn. I think they just need to be just repeatedly drilled on this. Like,
do you think they're a little bit different from the generations above them, like my generation?
I do.
Do you feel like there's like a difference in? I mean, you're going to an international school, so that's already kind of skewed.
Right. Yeah. Right. But that's like a small population, right?
That's going to be more open to these external influences, but still, like, do you feel a difference between when you talk to them versus when you talk to someone my age?
I do, and even the people our age, like I feel like millennials, like we're doing so much better than the generations
that's true.
Before us, and just being in schools, and I've been around just regular public school kids as well a little bit, and I was pretty impressed that just a lot of them are just curious. And I think that curiosity is what's necessary. You know, looking back at the U.S. and what's happening, there's not enough like curiosity or empathy, right? We don't have enough curiosity to know how someone else feels or what it's like to be in someone else's shoes. And then there's not enough empathy seeing what's happening to them and then kind of like, you know, feeling for them and wanting to do something about it. But I feel that these kids, because they are kids, you know, they're curious about these other people who look different from them. And then also when they see injustice, I don't know, there's something about kids, when they see injustice, they don't like it.
Right.
You know, they're pure enough to be like, I don't like that. That's wrong.
Yeah.
Why is this happening?
Exactly. By the time they're my age, they're like, I'm too lazy to get involved in this shit. You know what I mean? It's like, well, it's not going to affect me.
That's why we got to get them now.
Exactly.
Gotta get them now.
Yeah, going back to talking to your students and other Korean people, what's an effective way to explain the Black Lives Matter movement to Korean people?
I think simply, the Black Lives Matter movement is a movement by people which started in the U.S., generally led by Black Americans, which is now actually being adopted by other Blacks across the world, to just protest and fight for the equal treatment of Black people, and also to fight against police brutality by the police.
If Korean people want to support this movement, what is the best method they can take?
I think one of the best methods that Korean people living in Korea can take is really just to talk to those who are Black, get an idea of what it's like living within our skin. Even if we're not from America. In the UK, they're fighting it as well. France, they're fighting it as well. There's tons of protests that are happening. Canada as well, they're fighting it. Just
everywhere.
Everywhere, right? Just talk to them and just get an idea of what it's like.
Is Korea racist?
Okay.
That's a whole nother pack of worms there.
Okay. I will try and answer this the best that I can. Okay.
Tell me the experience of living as a Black American in Korea.
Okay.
Do you have a citizenship here?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not.
Do you plan on getting one?
I thought about getting a residency, but I don't know. If I do, I have to pay taxes.
Oh right. That sucks. That sucks.
So that's what I'm like. To answer your question, is Korea racist? I would say there is a sense of racism here, a sense of nationalism here, but I cannot compare it to that of the U.S.
It's a different type.
It's a different type.
I would say it's a completely different type.
I think it's just a whole another beast in itself.
Right.
I don't actually know. I was gonna say that I don't know if one's better than or one's worse than the other, but I will actually say that the one in the U.S. is worse than the one in Korea, because I have not yet feared for my life here. Not one time. Not one time, but I have multiple times in the U.S. I will also say that Korea is more of an ignorant type of racism. Like, they just don't know
how to interact with Black people.
They just don't know.
They just haven't seen a lot of Black people.
They don't. Some people, like, they're meeting Black people for the first time, right, and having a conversation. Versus in the U.S., you know, they live around Black people. We all live in the same country. We talk to one another. We might have positive and negative interactions, but yet they still have these weird views, right? And there's still this system that's been in place ever since the 1700s, right? Just keeping Black people in a certain place.
So I would say, like, that's the American racism is much more cruel.
Way more.
In its nature.
Way more. I mean, it's a system that's been
and I think,
perfected over hundreds of years.
Right. And I think that's partly because, like, you know, Black people make up a big portion of American society, and they don't want too many Black people getting up in the ranks, I guess.
Right.
Is that it?
I think so. But then there's also argument, but we had a Black president. But it's like, I mean, out of the, what 45 that we've had?
Do you miss Obama?
I do. He's probably the best modern president that we've had. He's the best modern president. Our current president, I'm voting. I'm definitely voting this November. Okay. So, but I think being in Korea as a Black person, I feel safe.
Right.
I feel safe. In terms of any kind of racial interactions that I've had.
Right.
Like, there's been, like, dumb stuff. And then I've also had some, like, more serious things that happen, right? Like, the dumb stuff would be, like, walking around a corner, and then, like, there'll be some girl not paying attention. She looks up and sees me, and it's just look like she sees a ghost. She's like, "Whoa!" Right? And I'm just like, I guess I know. Hell, I wear a hoodie, right? And then like, I mean, there were times where I walked out from the shadows, and it's just like, hey,
Korean people are scared for their lives, not the other way around. That's what you're saying.
I don't really get it. And then especially when you look at them, and then like they're like,
right,
you know, and then they're like, you know, because you just completely surprise them. But then there's also like,
how does that make you feel?
At first,
are you like hurt by that, or are you like kind of enjoying that? Like, oh, I'm gonna make
first,
this person startled.
At first, it was funny. Or no, at first it was like it was bad. Now it's funny. Now I just can't help but laugh.
It's like you're looking forward to it.
Now it's like if it happens, that's another story to tell.
Interesting. Okay.
But then also there's the cases where like you date a woman,
right,
and her family doesn't want you to date them because you are black, right? And then there's like degrees, right? It's like you're a foreigner, and that's so for something it's like that's bad.
Yeah.
But then also of all foreigners for you to be, you're a black foreigner, and then that makes things even worse.
I see. Tough.
Yeah.
Tough.
But still, I'm not getting shot by police here, so I'm okay.
Yeah. Police like shoot, I think, less than 20 rounds a year in this country.
I believe, from what I've seen in Korean police, they like to talk people down.
I have a friend who's a policeman, and he says like basically police can't do shit here because every single thing they do, they could potentially be punished for it for excessive force.
Wow.
So I think even if they have like some sort of weapon, you'd have to be in dire danger to actually use a taser gun. So it's like a very safe for civilian country. I'd say. Definitely.
Versus in the U.S. like guys are running away and then the cops are shooting them in the back.
Right.
Instead of just running them down, or even like running and then tasing.
One last question.
Okay.
So you said that Koreans are now interested somewhat in hearing from black people. Was there interest before? Were you interested in telling your story to them prior to the set of events, prior to the death of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, this wave of BLM?
Yes, but the story, the narrative is kind of changed. Like at least the tone of the story changed, right? Because before, like I enjoyed telling my story. I do so on my YouTube channel. I do so just with other people. And it kind of has like a light kind of tone to it. It's just like things that happened to me in Korea or even things in the US. But then like after all of this has happened, then now the questions have gotten deeper. The conversations have gotten deeper. And then now I'm like, okay, so then now my story has gotten deeper. Right. And not only do I talk about my story, I like to talk about my family story, my mom's story. There's just so much history there that can really help people understand not just the Black Lives Matter movement, but the history and the purpose of the Black Lives Matter movement. Because to be honest, Black Lives Matter, I would say, has probably been alive for a very long time, but now we've probably given a name to it. Because we've always been protesting and fighting for our lives. Fight.
So where do you see this heading? Like, do you think this is going to bring a substantial change in the world? There
has been a lot of changes have already happened. Between, like, looking in the UK, them taking down a lot of the, like, imperial statues that were up.
I saw that.
And like, just, which I was very happy about that. And now people are questioning things in the U.S. Like, why are we
celebrating Columbus Day?
Oh God, that one, that dude. And I'm glad. No, now people have already, even within some of our educational resources, they started telling the truth about Columbus. But it's like, for example, I think in the last 4 or 5 days, NASCAR. They have now banned the Confederate flag.
Oh, really?
Which is a big, because one of their drivers who's really successful, but he's black. He's one of the first black drivers that's successful in NASCAR. He just kept protesting the flag, and they were like, "Okay, we're going to ban the flag."
Interesting, because I may be stereotyping here, but from my perception of NASCAR,
it's
a very,
yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
The demographic there, I would say, is very conservative. Like,
you're absolutely correct.
You're watching cars go in ovals for
circles,
like 3
right?
hours. Like,
it's mostly conservative, mostly white, men driving.
I'm not saying anything about those people, but I'm just saying, like, I would think that demographic is not going to be too happy about that. But it's changing.
I think I read this morning that he woke up, or not woke up, he went to his locker or something, and he found like a noose. And you know a noose? So like when people get hung, yeah. So like
what?
Yeah, which was
in
always
his locker. Who put it there?
And so NASCAR's, they launched an investigation to figure out how it got there, because that was always used as a weapon of intimidation against black people.
Right.
And now someone put it in there to intimidate him.
What the?
So like so then like change is happening. Between that, demilitarizing the police in the U.S. Like, the police have like tanks and stuff. Good God.
What? They have tanks? Why would they need tanks?
So like maybe not like military grade tanks, but like the type of like firearms they have, and then like the type of it's very militarized. And so now there's that question of, do we need to demilitarize them, because now the police, they're using their force against the people, right?
Right. It's a very tough question.
It is.
Okay, one last
okay,
question.
one last.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
From the set of events, a lot of people are asking Korean people to become educated. Do you think that's fair? Because personally, here's what I think. I understand, like, this is a humanitarian issue, and it's not necessarily restricted to America. But we can agree on that the police brutality problem, or I guess that kind of racism towards black people that's occurring in America is not necessarily applicable here, right?
Right.
So is it like kind of too much to ask Korean people to be fully updated and like fully on board with Americans on this? Because in a sense, especially K-pop fans, because our viewers are K-pop fans and we deal with a lot of that shit. They say that Korean people should be aware because, K-pop is big in America. They have a big American audience. And I partly agree with that. But at the same time, American people didn't fight for us when, we were going through impeachment of the president. Were you there for the whole thing?
I was.
Yeah, so we had like huge protests every single week, millions of people. No one gave a shit, right, in America. Yeah. No K-pop American K-pop fan was like, oh, like I support your, like, no one cared. And I understand that. But at the same time, like, if you're gonna ask for Korean people to become part of the movement, right, I think it should go both ways. Is what I'm thinking.
You're right.
Yeah.
My answer is like multi-layered. I'm going to say I don't truly know, or I don't know, but I'll also say yes and no. I know, that's because like crazy answer, but I can explain it. Okay, here's why I would say I don't think Koreans have to become educated is because I think, and now it's grown beyond the U.S., but I would also say that sometimes Americans tend to think that American news is world news. Yeah. And that happens a lot. So this happens in America.
It's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Not this issue necessarily. Yeah, it's just like in general.
In general, right? And then now, kind of living outside the U.S., I can see that, right? Because living in the U.S., we're kind of groomed to think that about the country, right? That we are the world, or the world revolves around us, right? And so again, this is not so much
Michael
about
Jackson
this
had a song. We are the world.
We are the world, right? And boom, that was it right there. And so, but I think at the same time, it's good for Koreans to know what's happening just because it's spread now to other countries in the world. And then now you're having, like, Korea has a lot of people who are multiracial living in Korea. And so it kind of brings, I don't ever think Korea is going to be like as multicultural as like the US or Canada or anything like that. But now you're starting to have people who are represented not just just regular people in society. But then now you start to look at people on TV as well, and you're starting to have Black and brown people on TV, right? And I think they're going to kind of bring these stories with them. And so it's not the fact that, like, you have to be educated or you have to agree to this or you have to understand that. But I think being exposed to it, thinking about it, and then even just, I don't know, allowing your mind to kind of just, I guess, just be exposed to it, right? Is a step in the right direction. But I also would go back and say, I don't think that we should expect other people to adhere to whatever Americans know, understand, or agree or disagree with.
That's pretty much right.
Yeah.
I agree fully. That was Mike, everybody. Thank you for coming.
No, thank you for inviting me. I love this chat.
That was a successful first episode, I think.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
Everybody go check out Mike's channel. What's it called?
It's called Mikole, Mikole. Come check me out.
What do you talk about on your channel?
So I talk about my perspective living in Korea as a Black male. Like,
exactly what we talked about today.
Exactly, right? And I love to have fun.
Perfect promotion.
Thank you. Y'all come over.
Yeah, so go check out Michael's channel and his Instagram, I guess.
That's Mikole86.
Yeah, it's down here below. And thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this.
And I don't know what to say. Fighting. And bye-bye.
Later.